Okay, let's be civil about this. You don't like me, and I personally think that you're the worst pony in this entire dang show. Which isn't entirely fair since you're not really a character. You just had that one scene in Putting Your Hoof Down that really rubbed me the wrong way.
That's a break, kid. Next time, don't be such a doormat.
So my anger is really an assigned meaning, which is the theme for this episode. And if you won't trade for me for the items that I need in this fetch quest, well, then I bid you good day. But there will be a reckoning.
I'll give you this for that.
A reckoning!
That for this. We'll have it made with barter.
Finally, an episode with a short title. I was starting to think the writers were getting paid by the syllable. Anyway, let's start things off with the Exposition Express.
We're all going to the Rainbow Mall Traders Exchange!
I had to tell you all this because I was afraid you'd forgotten on the train ride.
Wait, that is something Pinky actually would say. So we have an episode in the spirit of Best Night Ever and Castlemania. All of the main six enjoy a storyline, though with varying degrees of focus. But before we tackle each storyline, I want to praise Scott Sonneborn for how he handled Spike this episode. The opening scene with Spike's comic book serves a twofold purpose. It's an early example of how the trade fair works, and it gives us a reason why Spike isn't a big player in this episode. So many times this season, Spike has simply vanished from the story without a reason. Sure, the show is called My Little Pony, but dropping characters like that just doesn't work. Sometimes all the audience needs is a reason why a character is occupied. And an intense day-long haggle over comic books is a reason that is far too close to reality with some comic book aficionados. But moving on to characters who actually feature in this episode, let's take a look at my favorite odd couple.
Why don't we pool our trade stashes?
Absolutely brilliant! I'm so glad I have a friend like you, Applejack.
I feel the same way.
Huh, well, I foresee no problems arising from this. Let's move on to Twilight and her assigned meaning, or rather her lack of assigned meaning. Since the trade fair is pretty much automated and Twilight's role is ceremonial, she doesn't see it as a big deal. Arguably a practical viewpoint, but she fails to factor in that this may be the closest some ponies get to seeing royalty and asking for an autograph. And in one of the best characterization events with her princess title, Twilight actually shies away from the attention. It's nicely done and sets up a good conflict. Too bad it's never touched on again. Twilight's arc focuses on her clearing out the clutter.
Ever since I became a princess, Celestia's been sending me more books to read than ever.
Interesting. Twilight did have all of 3 seconds to prepare herself before becoming royalty. It makes a lot of sense that Celestia would have her read up on the role before sending her into greater responsibilities. Too bad this is episode 22 out of 26. It would have been nice to know that earlier. Twilight is set to sell her collection for a quill. A fine choice in my opinion. She's viewing this from a very logistic-based perspective. If she doesn't get that, as royalty, her actions carry an implied weight. So it's up to Pinkie Pie to talk some common sense. I cannot believe I just said that.
According to the rules of the exchange, a trade is only fair if both ponies end up with something they want.
That is the stupidest rule in the history of frivolous litigation. There's a reason why the Uniform Commercial Code is 9 articles long and can be used as an offensive weapon in underground lawyer pit fights. That's not a thing? Why not? I get that this show is aimed at a young audience and therefore things have to be simplified, but there's a difference between simplifying and dumbing down. This rule is so vague that it wouldn't solve any dispute. Yet Twilight was about to break this worthless rule, which would actually undermine her role. So after Pinkie traumatizes a foal, she starts playing up the value of Twilight's books.
Before that, she was nothing. That's 0. Hey, then she read these books and voila! Princess!
But Pinkie is, well, Pinkie. And she goes overboard so that no pony thinks they can offer an equal trade. But that's okay because Twilight realizes that these books do have sentimental value, and so she has no problem hoarding them. And I really dislike this message. It's true that we assign meanings to items, especially collectibles. Yet at the end of the day, our memories don't disappear if we lose or damage those items. There's a value in collecting and a value in letting go. But again, this show is aimed to push toy sales, and a message of letting go of material goods isn't gonna fly anytime soon. Now, speaking of collecting, I hear you're willing to trade for rocks? I have a terrible foreboding about this. So that's Pinkie and Twilight for a while, but what about Fluttershy and Rainbow? Oh my gosh! Rarity and Applejack aren't getting along perfectly? Well, I for one am shocked. Shocked! Turns out they both want to trade all their stuff for a mass-produced brooch and a tin for making salmonella pie. I can only imagine that their trade bags are full of used rags and excess hats. But there's a certain sense in making them argue over junk. The audience doesn't have to debate which is the better prize because they're both shown to be worthless. The real assigned meaning here is that Rarity and Applejack want to prove who is the better friend by giving up what they want. And while these two are always fun to see playing off one another, we saw more over-the-top competition in simple ways, and I'm afraid the banter here doesn't go far. And neither do they. They're stuck in the same spot for the remainder of the episode. And I'm stuck too because I apparently need, these rocks?
Those are some very special rocks.
I would prefer plausible deniability, thank you. So what will you trade for them? I'll get back to you. And while those two are sitting like stumps, it's Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash who hold the majority of the episode's focus. Rainbow's on a quest for a first edition novel and the accomplishment of having a complete first edition collection. Fluttershy, she just wants to help. Which is why, for this episode at least, Fluttershy is the best pony. And their story is your typical fetch quest, the kind that any RPG fan of the last 30 years can recognize.
He traded a crystal chalice for an antique chicken. And the chicken for a lamb. And the lamb for an Orthros. Just like you asked.
And in pursuit of this quest, Rainbow Dash will deny one booth business, give away a food vendor's product for free, and basically become a walking economic disaster. She will also deploy plutonium-grade cuteness against Stellar Eclipse, the original character of one, boy. To my neighbors in Canada and all French-speaking members of the world, I am sorry for the linguistic homicide I am about to commit against your fine language. Please know that this is not intended as a joke. I'm just really, really bad at names. Please do not declare war against America, for that is where I keep all of my socks. The original character of Sylvain Nicholas Levasseur Portalance, a young man who made an appearance thanks to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Sylvain Nicholas has generated awareness for a condition known as spinal muscular atrophy and raised over $8,000 towards researching a cure. He works every day towards overcoming his own SMA Type 3. Now, I honestly considered making a best brony graphic for this segment, but in the context of the review, I didn't want this to sound like I was making fun of his accomplishments. So all I'll say is this. Dude, keep being awesome. However, I must still call OP on this character, for he is able to resist a look that would slay most. Truly, his rumbly tummy is a force, not of this earth. And quite frankly, Dash would have been lost without Fluttershy's support. She helps train the Orthos, clears the crowd with her bear whistle, yes, that's a thing, and then doesn't raise complaint when she loses said whistle.
It's just a bear call. There's nothing I could have traded it for that's more valuable to me than you.
The best pony. And after their long and winding quest is complete, Rainbow has her coveted book. And Fluttershy is traded into indentured servitude?
But if that is what you really want...
So we got a fair deal?
Of course it's a deal!
The best. No, I'm sorry, but no. Up until this point, Fluttershy has been selfless. But here, she is being a pushover. It's not healthy and she really, really needs to say no. I know this is set up for Dash to have an epiphany, but now it's coming at the expense of Fluttershy's character. Of course, I also blame the pony who's too lazy to train the Orthos herself and broke a verbal contract. She's taking advantage of Fluttershy, kind of like you did. Being a doormat is a weakness that Fluttershy has to face, but that doesn't dismiss your actions. It's so much like real people. Easier to be selfish and blame someone else than try to be better. And that's the meaning I've assigned to you. It's also the reason I'll have no regrets for this. All of my fan rage. And yes, Rainbow does indeed wake up and realize that wanting an item at any cost is a lot steeper than she thought. So she turns to Twilight for help. And while I'm still disappointed that Twilight didn't face her princess role directly, I am impressed at how she handled her role as a mediator. She's not showing bias, she hears both sides, and she sticks to the rule. I mean, it's not her fault that the single rule governing this trade fair doesn't outlaw trading ponies. Speaking of which, would you like to trade some of those special rocks for a selfish jerk with whom you can do with as you please? We get a speedy resolution as a speech from Rainbow causes the other pony's heart to grow 3 sizes that day. Fluttershy is released from servitude and the various parties rejoin on the train for the moral about how friendship is way better than things. Here, I got your dang rocks. I don't want to know, just gimme. All in all, this episode is middle of the road. I have fun seeing these ponies pair up and play off one another, yet the Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy storyline overshadowed the others. Here, I finally got your Yeah, way to think outside the box there, sport. So, we gonna trade? Also, can I get a Slurpee? It's really hot out. To this episode's credit, it's a visual treat, showing not only a variety of background characters, but even a few crystal ponies for good mix. They have been so isolated from the rest of Equestria that I was starting to forget they were even a part of the show. Still, I really do wish that the story could have addressed 2 very large character issues. I think the episode could have been stronger if Fluttershy had given Rainbow Dash a reality check, and Twilight could have tied into their storyline by mediating the damage left in Rainbow's wake, thus giving her more experience and helping her overcome her hesitation. But hey, at least we all came away from this episode with something we wanted. Now I know what you're thinking, that this thing is gonna corrupt me. Did you see what I did to get this? I am pretty far gone, folks. I'm Silver Quill, and I just realized what that guy is going to do with those rocks. Stop, you fool! You'll kill us all! Brain freeze. I'm Silver Quill, thanks for watching!
That for this, we'll make a trade called barter. I'll give you this for that. That for this, we'll have it made with barter. Now barter worked well, at least in theory, but a wallet full of yaks could make you weary. Making change for a cow wasn't easy to master unless you were ready for an utter disaster.